Hi, I'm Arun George, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. It began in the early hours of Thursday morning. By daybreak, a gas from the LG Polymers plant in Visakhapatnam district had spread in a wide area around the plant. The visuals were shocking. People and animals had collapsed, foaming at the mouth. People were collapsing in the arms of others, seemingly losing control of their limbs. Motorcycles lay on the road, their riders lying beside them, unclear whether they were dead or alive. In this episode, we're doing a deep dive into the Visakhapatnam gas leak. We're looking at what has happened so far. We spoke to an environmental activist about accountability in such industrial accidents, and we look at the challenges that victims of such tragedies face in getting justice. First, we speak to Srinivas Janyala, who covers the state of Andhra Pradesh for the Indian Express. We asked him to explain how the incident had played out. Could you outline exactly what happened on the morning of Thursday?
Styrene, which is a raw material in production of plastic, general use plastic, that was stored in a tank. It is usually stored in liquid form, but it evaporates very quickly if the temperature goes above 20 degrees Celsius. So the plant was shut for nearly 44 days. Whether it happened due to that or it was a general accident unconnected to the lockdown, it is not known. But on leave in the wee hours of Thursday, some chemical reaction happened inside the tank and leading to a rupture of a valve, and this styrene in the form of vapor started leaking. There was some 1800 tons of styrene in the tank. About half of it leaked before some of it could be contained. And there are about 5 villages surrounding the factory, but Venkatapuram village, which is nearest, about 1.5 kilometers away, was the most affected. There were about 1,000 residents in that village. So 12 people died. 10 of them are from that particular village only, Venkatapuram. 2 persons died due to the leak-related accidents. One fell into a well and another fell down from a 2-storied building. So the toll as such is 12. There are about 250 to 300 people in King George Hospital and 2 other private hospitals. About 30 or 40 of them are children.
He also says that because of the preparations to slow the spread of COVID-19, there were better facilities like ventilators available to those who were taken to hospitals. But what is said to be the cause of the incident?
One probable cause that the company officials say is that although the gas that had settled down in the tank may have been at proper temperature, some gas, because it was not used for nearly 40-45 days, some gas may have accumulated at the ceiling of the tank, and there the temperature may have gone up, which may have led to the valve to rupture and the gas leak.
Srinivas says he can't remember a similar accident in the state at any time in the recent past. And that might explain why there's a lot of anger among locals over the incident.
People are in shock. Many of them woke up in hospitals because they were in deep sleep and they fell unconscious. It was only cops who broke open doors of houses, went inside, picked up people and took them to hospital. Many of them woke up in hospitals actually, not knowing what exactly happened. All the people complained of irritation in the eyes, burning of skin, irritation in the skin. People are very angry, or they are coming out of the shock, but very angry that this kind of an accident happened and they are going through this ordeal.
A lot of this anger spilled out onto the streets on the 9th of May.
People are very angry. They want the company to be shifted from there or closed down. Main demand is that they should shift the company to elsewhere because there is a big town nearby, Gopalpatnam. Pendurti is about 5-7 kilometers away. Big towns there are. And it is just 15 kilometers from Vizag main city. So people want this factory to be shifted elsewhere to a non-residential zone. And yesterday there was a demonstration by residents of all the 5 villages. In fact, when the bodies which were handed over after post-mortem, the ambulances were taking them to the respective villages. They stopped the ambulances and took out the bodies and placed them in front of the company factory gates and demanding that we won't lift the bodies until action is taken against the officials and the company is closed down. It was only after police intervened and the minister came and gave them assurances that action will be taken after the completion of the probe did they were pacified and sent off from there.
Srinivas says the state government has promised action against the company in this case.
They've set up a probe committee comprising of IAS and IPS officers and also NDRF officials. They will examine what exactly happened. Was there any negligence on part of the officials there who were operating it? And whether the factory needs to be closed down or not, that the committee will examine. On the other hand, the government has announced 1 crore as ex gratia to the families of those who died, about 10 lakhs to each person who is severely affected and in hospital.
He also listed what the company had said following the incident.
They have basically issued an apology, and they have also said that they will work with the affected villagers, provide them, all kinds of medical help, as well as if they need counseling and all. They have set up a task force which will contact all these victims and work with them to ensure that they are safe and do not suffer any long-term problem. They have also issued a general apology to the people that they never expected this kind of a leak to happen.
Technical teams continued to inspect the site over the weekend. The residents of nearby villages who had fled from their homes had to stay in relief camps where they were provided food and water. They are likely to move back today. But there are now questions about the factory that was established in 1961 and merged with McDowell and Company in 1978. The factory was bought in 1997 by LG Chem, which renamed it LG Polymers. The factory was manufacturing general-purpose polystyrene, high-impact polystyrene, expandable polystyrene, and engineering plastics compounds. The Indian Express's Ashish Aryan and Pranav Mukul reported how documents revealed that the factory did not have an environmental clearance for its petrochemical plant for a substantial period of its operations between 1997 and 2019. In an affidavit submitted to the state-level Environment Impact Assessment Authority, the company claimed that as of May 2019, the factory did not have valid environmental clearance substantiating the produced quantity issued by the competent authority for continuing operations. The company had also said in the affidavit that it would not repeat any such violation in the future. The report also says that McDowell, the previous owner, had decided to decommission the production of styrene, considering the plant's proximity to populated areas. So why was the factory allowed to function despite being so close to human settlements?
There is a buffer zone of about 1 kilometer only, but this factory, when it was started in late 70s, it was barren. It was like a forest at that time there. And at that time, it was like far away on the outskirts of Visakhapatnam city. But now, lots of villages have come up around the factory, but environmental clearances have been given by Pollution Control Board and all. But it never came up for discussion that in spite of so many people living nearby, why the factory is functioning. Till now, no incidents happened there in the factories. In fact, many of the villages of these 5 villages, surrounding villages, work in the factory. One of the person who died by inhaling the gas leak was a supervisor at the factory itself. He did not die in the factory, but he died in the village. So lots of people work in the factory. So it never came up for discussion that why the factory is still functioning when there are so many people living around. But now maybe the government will have to examine that.
We spoke to Nityanand Jayaraman, an environmental activist who has worked with the 1984 Bhopal gas tragedy victims and has taken up issues like mercury poisoning in Kodaikanal and protests against the Kudankulam nuclear plant. Nityanand said one lesson from the 1984 Bhopal tragedy was that it shouldn't matter which came first when it comes to factories handling hazardous chemicals, the factory or the villages nearby. He said that if the settlements came after the factory, it was up to the authorities to ensure the unit didn't continue to expand or to ensure that the settlements weren't permitted.
Where you set up industries is as per the law. You have the Town and Country Planning Act, which has zonations, where you set up hazardous industries in zones reserved for hazardous industries. And logically, such zones must be far removed from places of habitation or other sensitive areas. So it's a matter of following the law. So it is not as if there is no room for setting up these industries. The fact is that we give it a go by because we do not value human life or the environment sufficiently enough to inconvenience companies by asking them to look at a location that is in line with the law. So we bend the law to suit the needs of industries. And that's why we are seeing in places like Chennai, where water bodies are allowed to be encroached upon by industries, we say, hey, there's not enough land. So here, you just take some water and go ahead and do it. We will change the law for you. We will ignore the law. So this is something that will come back to bite you.
In mild concentration, styrene isn't toxic. In liquid form, it's used in the manufacture of polystyrene plastics, fiberglass, rubber, and latex. The US-based Environment Protection Agency says short-term exposure to the substance can result in respiratory problems, irritation in the eyes and mucous membrane, and gastrointestinal issues. The agency says long-term exposure could drastically affect the central nervous system and cause other related problems. Styrene is classified as a hazardous and toxic chemical as per India's rules regarding the storage of hazardous chemicals used in industries. Styrene monomer, which was being used at the plant to produce expandable plastics, needs to be stored at a temperature below 17 degrees centigrade. At the time of the leak, there was an estimated 1,800 tons of styrene stored at the plant. Nityanand says the tragedy now gives India a dubious distinction.
Over here, styrene is a chemical that does not have the kind of acute toxicity that could lead to deaths. In fact, India has another dubious distinction next to Bhopal, that this is the first country where such a large number of people have actually died due to styrene exposure outside the factory place. There are no recorded deaths, even of workers, due to exposure by inhalation to styrene. So for styrene to have escaped from the factory, traveled a kilometer and a half, 2 kilometers, and killed people and cattle means that the amount of styrene that has been allowed to escape, I'm saying allowed because the conditions have been cultivated by a negligent company and a negligent or a pliant regulator. The amount of styrene that ought to have come out would have been extremely high concentrations. The background level of styrene in urban air is about 4.7 parts per billion. And the levels required to kill people is about 1,300 parts per million. That's about 400,000 times higher than what is normally found in ambient air. That is the level that ought to have come out of the factory, traveled 1.5 kilometers in order to kill people. That is incredible.
With every such tragedy comes the comparison with the 1984 Bhopal tragedy. Why does that still happen?
Two primary reasons. One, because Bhopal is the longest standing anti-corporate campaign. And in that way, Bhopal says that until corporations as a concentration of power is abolished, you cannot have democracy or justice. The second is that Bhopal also highlights environmental justice, environmental racism, where it says that it is not as if environmental problems are equally shared by everybody, that there are certain sections of the community, of the society, who bear a disproportionate burden of environmental problems and often also environmental solutions. And so if you look at the case of LG Polymers in Visakhapatnam, it is literally the same thing. Which side is the government batting on? On the side of LG. Who are the people who have been affected? Ordinary people. It is not the chief minister's house. It is not the bureaucrats who have been affected. It is not the well-to-do who have been affected. It is ordinary toiling people, farmers, peasants, workers who have been affected. The other thing is that Bhopal has also highlighted to us the importance of remembering. Because the fight in Bhopal is a fight against forgetfulness, of memory against forgetfulness. And I think that is something that people over here should also remember, that the government will try to forget, try to make this another day in history where they say, oh, in 2020, May 7th, there was a gas leak and it was resolved.
We asked Nityanand how accountability should be fixed in such cases. Who should be brought to book?
The accountability cannot happen as a post facto after the accident happens, because a system which is not able to ensure legal compliance in the earlier stages, which is siting and operation, cannot be expected to deliver after a problem has happened. What I would say is that for accountability to actually work, the first thing is that the law must be so strict that breaking it proves too expensive, or is it actual deterrent? In our country, it is cheaper to violate the law than it is to follow it. And as long as it is that way, people have no incentive to follow it. So I would say that, violating the law must be made really, really problematic. So, if I have a helmet law that says pay 20 rupees for a helmet violation, I will not wear a helmet. I will just shell out the 20 rupees every time, get a challan, and use the challan to run around that day and take my risk the next few weeks. In the case of the Visakhapatnam gas leak, now that it has happened, if you ask me what should happen now in terms of accountability, I think that the most stringent sections of the Indian Penal Code and for the violation of the manufacture, storage, import of hazardous chemicals rules, for the violation of the Air Act, the most stringent kind of charges must be leveled against the company, against the management, and most importantly, against the Pollution Control Board and Inspector of Factories officials who have given it a green signal. Because the problem in India also is that regulators are not held accountable. In fact, if you look at the state government's committee in Andhra Pradesh, the committee consists of the same people who allowed this disaster to happen. The Pollution Control Board officials will be standing in judgment on their own lapses.
We also asked Nityanand what was India's record when it comes to industrial accidents and their redressal.
India has a great track record of industrial accidents, but very, very poor track record of actually addressing liability, pinning criminal liability on the offenders, and in doing justice to the people who have been affected. So, Bhopal is a classic example where the perpetrators of the crime have been allowed to not just escape, but to return to India and re-establish themselves as a corporation that does business in the country. While the gas survivors continue to battle for their lives. And it's really ironic that all the people who have lost their lives to coronavirus in Bhopal are gas-affected people or survivors of the Bhopal gas tragedy. The fact that their petitions for cleanup of environmental contamination and for supplementary compensation are rotting in the Supreme Court.
Apurva Vishwanath, who covers the judiciary and the legal system, explains the legal remedies available to victims of such tragedies. So, Apurva, what laws govern things like the Vizag gas leak?
In terms of the legal framework, there are two kinds of laws that will operate. One is the civil law, wherein there will be civil liability on the company. So this will deal with paying compensation to the victims and things like that. On the other hand, there is the criminal law that will operate, where if found guilty, the owners of the company and even errant government officials will be prosecuted criminally. That's their jail term.
She says the order from the National Green Tribunal on the 8th of May, ordering LG Polymers to pay 50 crore rupees, is an example of the civil liabilities the company faces.
This was done so quickly because in civil liability, there is this principle of absolute and strict liability, which means that because you own the plant and you have a responsibility to ensure its safety, any damage coming from the plant, whether or not it is intentional, whether or not it was caused by the fault of the company, they will be liable to pay damages. So even if it is that LG is not responsible for the damage that happened in Vizag, they will still be paying compensation to the victims. So that part will be essentially dealt by a forum like the National Green Tribunal. So the NGT will sort of assess the damage, the number of victims, the sort of injury that they suffered, take into factors like hospitalization charges, and any subsequent continuing injury, if it's going to be a prolonged injury. So all of these factors will determine how much compensation will be charged.
But how difficult is it for victims of such tragedies to get compensation?
If we look back at a template, in the Bhopal gas tragedy case, the central government, in fact, enacted a law which made the central government the sole claimant. So it gave itself the power to negotiate the settlement with Union Carbide. And it so happened that the victims were completely left out of this process. And when the settlement deal sort of was challenged in the Supreme Court upheld it and said there was nothing wrong with the contract that the government of India and Union Carbide had drawn up. So it is for an individual person who is a victim in such a situation, little cooperation from the state, it becomes very difficult to actually claim compensation. But we do have some specific laws that have been put in place since Bhopal happened. And one such law is the Environmental Protection Act and the National Green Tribunal Act. So there is a specific forum where you can address these issues. But of course, decisions of NGT again can be challenged in the Supreme Court. And it usually takes a long time for these to attain finality in India.
We asked if there'd ever been a collective payout to victims of an industrial accident of this kind.
In the past, we've seen National Green Tribunal, not just in cases of industrial accidents like this, but if you remember the Volkswagen case at the National Green Tribunal collected a fine of more than 500 crores, which has been sort of the highest fine that the tribunal had imposed on a corporate entity. So increasingly, there is the polluters pay principle applied more strongly. So across Ganga, you will see that polluting industries are being penalized every day. So these are also incidents which result in the death of a large number of people. In terms of severity, it may not match what happened in Vizag, but you do see a large number of cases like these being handled by the tribunal and even the Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court now specifically says that such cases should only go to the tribunal. So in the tribunal, there is an assessment of claims that is made. Like, for example, in the Volkswagen case as well, they came up with a figure that sort of was binding on the company. And you can challenge it in the Supreme Court, of course, but the tribunal has powers and also the technical expertise to arrive at a particular sum like this.
Despite the legal options available, Apurva explains why proceedings in the civil and criminal cases filed following such tragedies aren't always smooth.
The difficulty really to evaluate these claims and come at a figure for the compensation is really the regulatory processes in the country. So every state has a state pollution control board that is supposed to regulate, monitor these industrial entities, units in the state. So the EPA also says that not just the companies, but even government officials who've been negligent can be prosecuted for such incidents. But that is where it really tests the will of the state. Would the government want to come out and say, our employee has been negligent and that is why this damage happened? So this becomes really the stumbling block in prosecuting claims. So the state then goes easy on the company and it becomes a whole circle. But today, one way to sort of circumvent this is judicial monitoring. So today you had the NGT order which said that it will oversee the process there. So it appointed a committee and all the reports of the committee will sort of be looked at by a quasi-judicial body. So what it means is that the investigation will be done under the supervision of a judge. Otherwise, it really does become difficult to push the state to recognize its own failures in this and sort of prosecute.
You were listening to Three Things by The Indian Express. Today's show, as always, was edited and mixed by our producer Joshua Thomas. If you like the show, then do subscribe to it wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a rating or review. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet to us at Express Audio and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.